page, slowly, intentionally, and with a sense of inner steadiness that is rare in modern times. This man is often misunderstood, not because he hides himself, but because he carries a form of intelligence that does not seek the spotlight. It rests within him like a still lake, calm on the surface, yet impossibly deep beneath. This is the intelligence of the Sigma male. To most people, intelligence is something loud. It is shown through debate, dominance, performance, or the need to be recognized. But Sigma intelligence is the opposite. It is quiet, analytical, internal, and profoundly grounded in awareness. And because it does not announce itself, it often unsettles those who can sense it. People are not intimidated by loud knowledge. They are intimidated by silent understanding. What makes the Sigma's intelligence so quietly terrifying is the way he processes the world around him. While others rush, he studies. While others react, he reflects. While others try to win arguments, he tries to understand patterns. This creates a presence that feels unpredictable even to those who know him well. You cannot manipulate a man who sees through the structure of your intentions. You cannot fool a man who notices the small shifts in behavior that most people overlook. You cannot dominate a man who does not seek dominance in the first place. The Sigma male's intelligence is unsettling because it reveals a different kind of strength, one that comes not from force, but from clarity. He understands people at their core. He sees motivations without them being spoken, and he navigates life with an independence that cannot be influenced by pressure, opinion, or social expectation. In a world built on noise, the quiet man becomes the most mysterious figure in the room. His mind moves at a different pace, slower, deeper, and far more precise. His thoughts mature in silence before they ever reach his lips. And when he finally chooses to speak, people feel it, because his words are born from long observation, not impulsive emotion. His presence alone often reveals truths others prefer to avoid. Today, we're going to explore why this rare form of intelligence is perceived as terrifying, not in a dramatic or aggressive sense, but in a psychological one. Terrifying because it is uncommon. Terrifying because it is unshakable. Terrifying because it is rooted in truth. Let's begin. Number one, his intelligence is rooted in observation, not performance. The Sigma's mind works through watching, not competing. He studies patterns, behaviors, reactions, and outcomes with the patience of someone who values accuracy over speed. He does not rush to prove something or to outperform anyone. Instead, he allows the world to reveal itself at its natural pace, understanding that truth becomes clearer when you stop trying to force it into shape. This is why his intelligence feels so different, because it is rooted in observation, not performance. While most people rely on outward achievement or loud displays of capability, the Sigma refines his understanding by quietly absorbing every detail of his environment. He sees what others overlook, the hesitation behind someone's smile, the tension carried in their voice, and the contradiction between their words and their actions. He processes all of this without judgment, storing patterns the way a strategist gathers information before making a single move. This is the source of his quiet power. People who rely on performance-based intelligence often feel uncertain around him because his insight is almost too natural. He does not need to show off or convince anyone of what he knows. His clarity speaks for itself. His presence has a way of exposing hidden truths. not through confrontation, but through simple awareness. When a person who thrives on being the smartest in the room encounters a Sigma, something interesting happens. They feel seen, not impressed. The Sigma's intelligence is ego-free, which makes it even more disarming. It doesn't try to dominate, yet it quietly reveals the limitations of those who do. This creates an unusual dynamic. The Sigma's calm understanding becomes a mirror, reflecting back people's intentions, insecurities, and motivations with uncomfortable accuracy. Others may not fully understand why they feel unsettled around him, but they sense that he perceives more than he expresses. And it's true, he does. The Sigma sees patterns long before they play out, notices shifts in energy before they become visible, and detects dishonesty even when wrapped in charm. His intelligence is not loud, but it is sharp, not aggressive, but penetrating, not competitive, but unquestionably effective. In a world where people try so hard to prove themselves, the Sigma simply understands. And that understanding is what makes his intelligence not only unique, but also quietly terrifying. Number 2, he remains emotionally unattached to social pressure. Most people adjust their thinking based on approval, criticism, or fear of being judged. The Sigma does not. His intelligence stays pure because it is not filtered through the need to impress. This emotional independence allows him to think clearly in situations where others become clouded. The truth is simple. Most minds are not truly thinking, they are performing. They adjust their opinions depending on who's watching. They soften their truth depending on who might disagree. And they trade their authenticity for acceptance. This means their thoughts are never fully theirs. They are shaped, edited, and diluted by external pressure. But the Sigma male walks a completely different internal path. His mind does not bend to the temperature of the room. He does not look around before thinking. He does not check the reactions of others before forming conclusions. His thoughts rise from within, untouched by the noise that governs most people. This is why his intelligence often feels so rare, so sharp, and so intimidating. It comes from a place of freedom, a place where clarity is not compromised by the fear of judgment. When a Sigma is in a conversation, he is not crafting statements to gain approval. He is scanning for truth. When conflict arises, he is not thinking about how to protect an image. He's thinking about what is real. And when decisions must be made, he does not collapse under social pressure. He filters everything through logic, experience, and principle. This gives him a psychological advantage that few people ever develop, the ability to think cleanly under stress. While others panic, he analyzes. While others get emotional, he becomes still. While others rush to fit in, he steps back to see the whole picture. This calm mental posture is often mistaken for coldness, but in reality, it is clarity. The Sigma is not detached because he doesn't care. He is detached so he can see clearly, and that clarity becomes his quiet power. In a world where most people's thinking is shaped by group approval, the Sigma's independence of mind becomes a form of high intelligence, one that is unbothered, unmanipulated, and deeply respected. His thoughts do not echo the crowd. They originate from the self, and that in a noisy world is terrifying. Number 3, he sees motivations instead of words. The Sigma male listens differently. He pays attention to tone, timing, hesitation, micro-expressions, and the small inconsistencies that most people overlook. He is not the kind of man who waits for his turn to speak. Instead, he observes the subtle shift objects in a person's emotional landscape. When someone talks to him, he isn't distracted by the loudness of their words. He is focused on the quieter truths beneath them. He watches how their eyes move when they explain themselves. He notices the drop in vocal pitch when a lie slips through. He catches the forced smile meant to disguise discomfort, the unnecessary details added to make a story sound more believable, and the delayed response that signals internal conflict. His mind naturally pieces these fragments together, forming a clearer understanding of the person in front of him than they often have of themselves. And because this reading is instinctive, not forced, it makes him a mirror people can't easily hide from. Many individuals rely on social camouflage, charm, confidence, humor, or emotional theatrics to present a version of themselves that feels safe, palatable, or strategically constructed. But the Sigma male sees through that performance, not because he is trying to expose anyone, but because his quiet nature allows him to observe without being observed. His presence doesn't trigger the defensive ego that loud or dominant men often provoke. Instead, people speak freely around him, unaware of how much they're revealing. Over time, he begins to notice patterns, the contradictions between a person's words and their actions, the subtle tensions in their voice that betray insecurity, and the unspoken fears that sit behind their confident posture. And this ability can feel unsettling, especially to those who depend on their masks to navigate the world. They sense, sometimes without knowing why, that he can see through them. They feel exposed in his presence, even when he says nothing. The Sigma doesn't misuse this insight. He is not judgmental or manipulative. He simply prefers truth over pretense. By understanding what people truly mean, beneath their words, beneath their personas, he protects his peace, chooses his relationships wisely, and navigates social dynamics with a level of clarity that others rarely achieve. This is why his silence carries weight. This is why his perception feels intimidating. And this is why those who hide behind illusions often fear meeting a man who listens the way a Sigma male does. Number 4, he learns quickly and silently. Sigma intelligence is not loud or competitive. It is adaptive. He learns quietly, absorbs deeply, and improves without telling anyone. Because people do not witness his process, they are often surprised by his capability. What unnerves others is not just what he knows, but how he knows it. He does not collect information to win arguments or impress the room. He gathers understanding as a survival skill, a strategic advantage, and a personal necessity. While others chase applause, he chases clarity. While some men study to appear intelligent, the Sigma studies to become unshakable. His intelligence evolves the way a tree grows, slowly, invisibly, and from the inside out. By the time anyone notices the change, the transformation is already complete. This quiet adaptability is what makes him so unpredictable. He does not move in patterns that people can track or categorize. One year he might be struggling, evaluating, learning, and recalibrating. The next year he emerges with a level of mastery no one knew he was building. His mind works in a layered way. First he observes, then he analyzes, then he adapts. Most people only operate in the first layer. They see, they react, and they copy. But the Sigma watches human behavior the way a strategist studies an evolving battlefield. He picks up on tone, intention, inconsistencies, hidden motives, and micro patterns. This allows him to pivot quickly, refine his approach, and avoid traps most men fall into repeatedly. His intelligence is also deeply introspective. He questions himself before he questions the world, correcting his blind spots, understanding his biases, and strengthening his weaknesses. Others wait for life to teach them lessons. The Sigma seeks those lessons on purpose. This self-directed growth creates a kind of psychological agility. He learns faster because he is not afraid to confront uncomfortable truths. What truly terrifies people is how silently effective he is. They expect intelligence to broadcast itself through loud opinions or visible ambition, but the Sigma does not advertise. His progress shows up suddenly, in his decisions, in his boundaries, in his emotional discipline, and in the way he removes himself from environments that no longer serve him. People cannot understand how he changed so quickly, because they never saw the hours of quiet learning behind the scenes. And that is the core of the Sigma's power. He grows without performing his growth. He evolves without needing an audience. He becomes more dangerous without ever becoming loud. Number 5, he thinks long-term, while others seek comfort. Many people make decisions based on whatever they feel in the moment: impulse, convenience, pressure, or the desire to avoid discomfort. Their choices are often shaped by emotion rather than intention, urgency rather than clarity. But the Sigma's intelligence works differently. His mind does not rush toward the nearest option simply because it is easy or immediately rewarding. Instead, he pauses, turning inward, consulting the quiet space within himself, where clarity is never rushed and wisdom is never forced. He is not guided by the temporary noise of emotion, but by the long arc of consequence. While others react to the present, he responds to the future. He studies patterns, observes the energy of situations, and considers how each choice will affect his long-term stability, growth, and peace. This internal strategy gives him an unusual strength, the ability to make decisions that protect his life rather than complicate it. To the outside world, this slow, logical decision-making can seem unpredictable, even mysterious. People expect quick answers, visible reactions, and obvious moves. But the Sigma is not performing for anyone. His deliberation is quiet, private, and deeply intentional. He is not avoiding action, he is refining it. And because he does not reveal his thought process, people can never quite predict what he will do next. They misunderstand stillness as uncertainty, when in truth it is precision. They misinterpret silence as hesitation, when in reality it is strategy. What looks like unpredictability is simply a man who refuses to be rushed by the world, a man who chooses direction over distraction, a man who builds his life through intelligence, not impulse. Number 6, he does not fear solitude, he uses it. Where others become anxious in silence, the Sigma becomes sharper. His intelligence deepens during moments of solitude, moments where reflection, analysis, and clarity rise naturally. This makes him mentally self-sufficient, a quality that is both rare and quietly intimidating. While most people feel a need to fill the quiet with noise, distraction, or reassurance, the Sigma leans into it. He understands that silence is not empty. It is information. It is a landscape where thoughts are not rushed, where emotions are not scattered, and where he can see the truth beneath the surface of things. In solitude, his mind organizes itself. Instead of spiraling or overthinking, he refines. Instead of seeking answers from others, he listens to the internal reasoning that most people avoid. This calm relationship with silence becomes one of his greatest strengths. It is during these quiet hours that he makes his best decisions, uncovers patterns others overlook, and strengthens the inner discipline that guides his life. Silence does not threaten him because he does not depend on external validation to feel grounded. He finds clarity without needing anyone to explain the world to him. His self-sufficiency becomes a form of psychological independence, one that other people can sense even if they cannot articulate it. And this, in turn, is what makes him intimidating. You cannot manipulate a man who thinks clearly in isolation. You cannot pressure a man who does not panic in stillness. You cannot control a mind that grows more powerful the moment the world becomes quiet. For the Sigma, silence is not an absence of life. It is the environment where his intelligence sharpens, his intuition strengthens, and his true self steps forward, calm, aware, and unshakably in control. The intelligence of the Sigma male is not meant to overpower others, nor is it something he uses as a weapon. It is simply the natural result of a man who has learned to see clearly, think independently, and move through life without the noise that distracts most people. His depth is not for show. His insight is not for applause. His understanding is not for status. It is for alignment. It is for peace. It is for living a life guided by quiet truth rather than external pressure. And in a world where everything pulls you outward, the Sigma male reminds us of the strength that comes from returning inward. His intelligence is terrifying only to those who rely on confusion, manipulation, or social chaos to maintain their power. But to those who value growth, authenticity, and clarity, his presence becomes a grounding force, steady, calm, and unmistakably real. So as you continue your own path, remember this: true intelligence does not demand attention, nor does it shout to be seen. It simply exists, quietly shaping your decisions and sharpening your awareness. And with time, it becomes the quiet engine that elevates your life. Move with intention, think with clarity, and trust the silent parts of your mind, because that is where your real power lives. There are certain habits in life that speak louder than words, habits that don't demand attention but naturally reveal the kind of man you are. For Sigma males, these habits aren't flashy or exaggerated. They don't come with loud declarations or the need to impress others. Instead, they're quiet, steady, and often unnoticed until someone looks closely. A Sigma male is not defined by titles or by how many people recognize him in a room. He is defined by the way he lives his everyday life, in small details that others overlook. The way he carries himself, the way he thinks, and the way he chooses to respond when no one else is watching. In today's world, where many men are pushed to prove themselves through external validation, Sigma males stand apart. They prove themselves differently, not by showing off, but by the strength of their independence and the clarity of their actions. These men live with a sense of quiet purpose, one that is not always easy to see but impossible to deny once you recognize it. Think about it for a moment. We live in a society that often rewards the loudest voice in the room, but what about the man who doesn't need to shout, yet still commands respect? What about the man who doesn't demand validation, yet leaves a lasting impression? This is the essence of Sigma. The habits we're about to explore are not common. Many men may try to copy them, but only a few can truly live them consistently. Because these habits are not just behaviors. They're reflections of an inner world built on discipline, solitude, and strength. So today, let's walk slowly through these habits one by one. As you listen, ask yourself, do these resonate with how you live your own life? You may find that you already carry some of them within you. And if you do, it may just confirm something important, that you are indeed walking the path of the Sigma male. Habit 1, comfort in solitude. The Sigma male does not fear being alone. For him, solitude is not a prison, it is a sanctuary. While many people equate being alone with loneliness, the Sigma sees it differently. Solitude, in his eyes, is a fertile ground where ideas grow, clarity sharpens, and creativity thrives. This mindset is deeply tied to psychology and history. Studies in psychology show that spending time alone can improve focus, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. Unlike extroverts who gain energy from social settings, Sigma males recharge in silence, allowing them to maintain independence and cultivate inner strength. Throughout history, some of the greatest thinkers and leaders have leaned into solitude. Albert Einstein famously said, "I live in that solitude which is painful in youth, but delicious in the years of maturity." Similarly, Nikola Tesla embraced being alone as a way to harness his creativity. For Sigma males, this isn't about isolation or rejecting people, it's about understanding that personal growth often requires space away from distractions. They thrive where others panic, because they recognize silence not as emptiness, but as a canvas to paint their thoughts and visions. The modern world often glorifies constant connectivity, social media, crowded gatherings, and endless conversations. For many, the idea of being without company sparks anxiety. Psychologists call this fear of solitude, a condition tied to an overdependence on external validation. But Sigma males flip this narrative. By choosing solitude, they cultivate resilience, discipline, and a clearer sense of identity. They do not seek approval from the crowd, which makes them more self-directed and often more mysterious in the eyes of others. In solitude, the Sigma male also hones creativity. Research published in the journal Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin shows that people who are comfortable spending time alone tend to produce more original ideas. This explains why Sigma males often have unconventional solutions, unique insights, or rare talents that set them apart. What others call loneliness, they recognize as the birthplace of innovation. Moreover, solitude strengthens reflection. Religious traditions across the world recognize the power of retreating into silence, whether it is monks in monasteries, prophets in the wilderness, or philosophers in quiet study. For the Sigma male, solitude becomes a personal discipline, much like meditation. It sharpens his decision-making and helps him maintain emotional balance, making him less reactive to external chaos. In a society that constantly pressures people to stay connected, the Sigma male reminds us of an overlooked truth. Sometimes the most powerful connection is the one you make with yourself. For him, being alone is not a weakness. It is the foundation of strength, creativity, and lasting growth. Habit 2, independence over approval. He doesn't chase validation. His choices, career moves, and lifestyle are directed by his own compass, not by the shifting opinions of others. This mindset is not just a romanticized idea of independence. It has deep roots in psychology and history. Studies in social psychology show that most people are highly influenced by external validation, meaning they adjust their behavior to be accepted, praised, or recognized. Social media has amplified this tendency, with likes and comments becoming modern tokens of approval. Yet individuals who resist this cycle, like Sigma males, embody what psychologists call internal locus of control. They believe their life outcomes are shaped more by their own decisions than by the world's approval, which often leads to greater resilience, confidence, and self-sufficiency. Throughout history, many great thinkers, inventors, and leaders shared this trait. Nikola Tesla, for example, lived much of his life overlooked and underfunded, while others chased fame and recognition. Yet his innovations continue to shape the modern world. Similarly, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about detaching from public opinion, reminding us that seeking constant validation is a trap that binds the soul. Sigma males mirror this philosophy in modern terms. They may excel in careers, build businesses, or pursue unconventional paths, not because it looks good on paper, but because it aligns with their values and vision. This doesn't mean they reject people or society. Rather, they understand the difference between connection and dependence. Relationships for them are chosen, not clung to, and success is measured by fulfillment, not applause. This creates a paradox. The less they chase validation, the more respect and admiration they receive. It is the quiet power of being self-directed. Just like how a compass always points north regardless of the terrain, their inner compass guides them steadily even when the world shifts around them. In a time when external validation feels almost unavoidable, this mindset is both rare and powerful. It requires courage to stand apart, to say no when others expect yes, and to trust one's vision even when misunderstood. That's why Sigma males are often seen as mysterious. They operate from conviction, not compliance. Their lives remind us of an enduring truth. Freedom comes not from applause, but from authenticity. To live guided by one's own compass is not only a mark of strength, but also a lesson for anyone who desires peace, clarity, and a life truly their own. Habit 3, observing more than speaking. Sigma males are often misunderstood because of their quiet nature. Many assume their silence comes from shyness or a lack of confidence, but that's far from the truth. In reality, their silence is a deliberate choice. Sigma males are observers. They spend more time watching, analyzing, and understanding their surroundings than most people do. This quiet watchfulness gives them a unique advantage. It allows them to notice details others miss and use those insights to shape their decisions with precision. Psychologists often describe this as a heightened form of situational awareness. Research in behavioral science shows that people who observe more tend to make better judgments in social and professional settings because they are processing more data before acting. Sigma males naturally embody this principle. While others may rush into conversations or decisions, they wait, assess, and move when the timing is right. This is why they often come across as mysterious, because they reveal so little while perceiving so much. In history and literature, many great leaders, inventors, and thinkers carried this same trait. Figures like Albert Einstein and Nikola Tesla were known to be highly observant introverts who preferred silence, not out of fear of people, but because they were lost in careful thought. Similarly, Sigma males use silence as a tool. By choosing to listen rather than speak, they can spot inconsistencies, hidden motives, or opportunities that others overlook. From an evolutionary perspective, silence also served as a survival mechanism. Early hunters and warriors relied on quiet observation to track prey or detect threats. That instinct remains in Sigma males today, making them naturally strategic in how they navigate life. They can enter a room and within minutes pick up on body language, tone, and atmosphere, skills that are invaluable in leadership, business, and relationships. What makes this silence powerful is not just what they notice, but what they do with the information. Instead of reacting impulsively, Sigma males process and filter details, then act with intention. This is why their decisions often appear well calculated and impactful. They don't need to speak loudly or frequently to influence a room. Their presence, awareness, and timely words are enough. So when you see a Sigma male sitting quietly, don't mistake it for weakness or insecurity. His silence is not empty, it's full of awareness, calculation, and understanding. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, he chooses to listen, and in that listening, he finds power. Habit 4, respect without demand. Instead of asking for respect, he earns it quietly. Through consistency, reliability, and calm presence, people naturally come to respect him. This is one of the most fascinating aspects of true leadership and influence. When authority doesn't need to be shouted, it is simply felt. In psychology, this is known as earned respect, which is more powerful and long-lasting than demanded respect. Studies in organizational behavior highlight that leaders who model dependability and calm composure tend to inspire greater trust and loyalty than those who rely on intimidation or status symbols. People instinctively recognize the difference between someone who forces attention and someone who lives in a way that naturally attracts it. In everyday life, this principle shows itself in subtle ways. The person who shows up on time, follows through on promises, and listens more than they speak builds a quiet credibility. Think of someone at work or in your community who never raises their voice, yet when they speak, everyone listens. That influence doesn't come from flashy charisma or a need to dominate. It comes from a steady track record of being someone others can count on. History is full of figures like this. Leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela exemplified how calm strength and reliability could draw respect without demanding it. There's also a biological side to this. Neuroscience suggests that humans are wired to feel secure around those who radiate calm energy. A study published in Frontiers in Psychology explains that mirror neurons in the brain cause people to subconsciously mimic the emotional state of those around them. This means a consistently calm person creates a ripple effect, lowering anxiety in others and making them feel safer in their presence. Over time, this emotional stability becomes a source of respect, even admiration. The lesson here is both practical and inspiring. Respect that is earned, not demanded, has deeper roots. Demanded respect fades the moment fear or authority disappears, but earned respect endures because it is tied to trust, consistency, and character. It's why the Sigma male archetype is often described as mysterious yet respected. He doesn't need to explain himself or seek validation. His actions and presence do the speaking for him. So whether in friendships, relationships, or leadership, the quiet consistency of one's actions has more weight than loud declarations. In the end, true respect is never forced. It is cultivated through reliability, calmness, and authenticity, the kind of presence people feel drawn to, not pushed toward. Habit 5, emotional self-mastery rare. The habit of staying calm under pressure is one of the rarest qualities a man can develop, and it is one of the defining traits of the Sigma male. Unlike most people who allow emotions to dictate their behavior, the Sigma does not let anger, fear, or insecurity control his actions. He doesn't lash out in a fit of rage, nor does he shrink away when tension rises. Instead, he chooses to respond rather than react. This subtle difference makes all the difference. Reacting is impulsive, often driven by raw emotion, but responding is intentional. It requires awareness, discipline, and self-control. This ability has roots in both psychology and physiology. Studies show that when humans experience anger or fear, the amygdala, the brain's emotional control center, fires off signals that flood the body with adrenaline and cortisol. This fight or flight response can cloud judgment, narrow focus, and lead to decisions that are regretted later. The Sigma male, however, masters the art of pausing. By taking a breath and refusing to be swept away by the storm of chemicals in his body, he re-engages the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain responsible for logic and decision-making. In doing so, he maintains clarity even in the heat of the moment. History provides countless examples of individuals who embodied this principle. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, often wrote about the power of remaining unshaken by external chaos. He believed that while one cannot control what happens in the world, one can always control how to interpret and respond to it. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom through practices like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which teaches people to identify automatic negative thoughts and replace them with constructive responses. What Stoics practiced in ancient times, Sigma males live out today, choosing calmness as a form of strength. This habit is not only practical, but also deeply attractive. People naturally gravitate toward those who exude composure in the midst of chaos. In leadership settings, calmness inspires trust. In relationships, it provides stability. And in everyday life, it sets one apart as someone who cannot be easily shaken. The Sigma male doesn't need to prove his dominance by raising his voice or displaying aggression. His silence and stillness speak volumes, showing that he is in control of himself no matter what the world throws his way. In a culture that often glorifies loudness, outrage, and instant reactions, the Sigma's calmness becomes a quiet form of rebellion. It is not passivity, but power under restraint. It is the discipline of a man who has mastered his inner world, and by doing so, can navigate the outer one with clarity and strength. Few men truly have this habit, but those who do are recognized as rare and formidable. Habit 6, living with purpose, not performance. For the Sigma, life is not a stage. He does not live to perform for others. Every step he takes is aligned with a deeper purpose, whether anyone notices or not. This mindset separates him from the majority who are often caught in cycles of validation, applause, and comparison. In psychology, this independence of thought is closely tied to what researchers call intrinsic motivation, a drive fueled not by rewards or recognition, but by internal values and goals. People who operate this way often display higher levels of self-discipline and long-term focus because their actions are rooted in personal meaning rather than fleeting approval. Think of it like this. Most men walk through life under a spotlight, consciously or unconsciously adjusting their actions to fit what others expect of them. The Sigma male, however, walks in the shadows by choice, not because he is hiding, but because he doesn't need that light to define him. His decisions may appear quiet or even mysterious, yet they often carry profound depth. For example, while some may chase high-paying careers simply for status, the Sigma chooses a path that aligns with his values, even if it brings less recognition. Studies in human behavior show that this type of alignment between actions and purpose leads to greater life satisfaction and resilience. What makes this fascinating is that society often misunderstands such men. To the casual observer, the Sigma might seem aloof, rebellious, or detached, but in truth, he simply refuses to live a scripted life. Anthropologists have noted similar traits in lone wolf figures across cultures, individuals who operate outside hierarchies, yet influence them indirectly. Their strength lies in self-reliance, but their impact often echoes louder than those who constantly seek the crowd's attention. This doesn't mean the Sigma lives without struggle. On the contrary, living authentically can be lonely. And history is filled with examples of visionaries and thinkers who were dismissed in their time because they refused to conform. Yet, as research in leadership and innovation consistently highlights, breakthroughs often come from those willing to walk a different path. The Sigma embodies this principle daily, not with noise, but with quiet conviction. In the end, his life is not about putting on a performance, but about crafting something real. Every choice, every step, every silence speaks of a deeper mission, one that does not need an audience to have meaning. And in a world obsessed with appearances, that authenticity is what makes the Sigma truly rare. When you take a step back and reflect on these habits, something profound becomes clear. Being a Sigma male is not about fitting into a stereotype or chasing an image that others recognize. It is at its core about alignment with oneself, living life with quiet purpose, steady discipline, and a sense of inner direction that does not rely on external applause. Modern psychology often points out that true confidence is not loud or boastful. It is calm and deeply rooted in self-acceptance. Sigma males embody this principle almost effortlessly. Their strength is not measured by how much attention they draw, but by how consistently they stay true to their values, even when no one is watching. These habits are not about recognition or quick rewards. In fact, sociological research shows that people who pursue validation externally often experience burnout and dissatisfaction, whereas those who build habits rooted in self-mastery and independence develop resilience and long-term fulfillment. The Sigma way mirrors this truth. Each habit, whether it's maintaining discipline, valuing solitude, or approaching life with quiet confidence, acts as a marker of deeper strength. And while anyone can try to copy these patterns for a while, sustaining them requires authenticity. It is one thing to mimic confidence, it is another to live it daily without needing a stage. Perhaps you recognized only one or two of these habits in yourself, or maybe you noticed all of them reflected in your life. Either way, the point is not to wear the Sigma label as a badge for others to see. True independence doesn't require validation. A Sigma male understands that his worth does not increase when others notice him, nor does it decrease when they overlook him. This echoes timeless wisdom found in philosophy and faith traditions, that self-mastery is the highest form of freedom. In the end, these habits are less about being classified as Sigma and more about becoming a man of depth, a man who stands with quiet strength, who doesn't need the noise of the world to validate his path. True masculinity does not compete for attention, perform for recognition, or chase after fleeting approval. It simply exists with calm assurance. And here's the paradox. When you live that way, the world inevitably notices. Not because you demand its attention, but because authentic strength is impossible to ignore. There comes a time in a man's journey when silence speaks louder than words, and his presence carries more weight than his explanations. For the Sigma male, this stage arrives when he has stripped away everything unnecessary, every doubt, every distraction, and every fear of being misunderstood. It is a moment not marked by noise, but by stillness, not by a display of power, but by the quiet recognition that nothing external can move him. Think about this carefully. An untouchable man is not someone who fights with everyone, nor is he someone who forces others to notice him. Instead, he becomes untouchable when he no longer depends on their validation, their approval, or even their understanding. His life is guided by principles, not popularity. His steps are directed by clarity, not chaos. This doesn't happen overnight. It is the result of years of trial and error, of setbacks that taught him patience, and of loneliness that shaped his resilience. The Sigma does not seek the spotlight, yet when he reaches this stage, the world cannot help but notice his calm indifference. People may gossip, criticize, or even try to provoke him, but none of it sticks. He has built himself into something unshakable. And here's the truth. When a Sigma becomes completely untouchable, it changes not only how others see him, but also how he sees himself. Suddenly he realizes that he doesn't need to chase, he doesn't need to prove, he doesn't even need to explain. His life begins to flow with a natural authority that no title, no amount of wealth, and no external label could ever give. So today, let us walk through what truly happens when a Sigma male reaches this rare stage of being untouchable. But before we begin, if you find value in this kind of reflection, consider subscribing for more calm insights into the Sigma path and the life of high-value men. Now let's explore the 7 things that happen when a Sigma becomes untouchable. In number 1, his detachment becomes his strength. He no longer reacts impulsively to opinions, rejections, or even praise. Instead, he has learned the art of detachment, a discipline that has fascinated philosophers, psychologists, and spiritual teachers for centuries. Detachment is not about indifference or coldness, it is about control. It is the ability to observe life without being tossed around by every passing judgment or fleeting emotion. In psychology, this closely resembles the concept of emotional regulation, where one learns to pause, reflect, and respond thoughtfully rather than react instinctively. Studies in neuroscience show that people who practice mindfulness and self-control activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, rather than the amygdala, which drives impulsive reactions. This neurological shift explains why calm, detached individuals are often seen as composed and unpredictable. Their choices aren't dictated by external pressures, but by internal clarity. Throughout history, such composure has been linked with wisdom. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius emphasized that true power lies in mastering one's mind, not in controlling others. Similarly, Eastern traditions such as Buddhism teach that detachment protects inner peace by loosening the grip of ego, desire, and fear. When a man embodies this principle, he becomes difficult to manipulate because he does not rise or fall on the basis of flattery, criticism, or rejection. Modern society, with its constant notifications and waves of social validation, makes this detachment rare, and that rarity is what makes it so powerful. An individual who remains calm when others expect anger, silent when others expect defense, or composed when others expect desperation becomes unpredictable. That unpredictability unsettles people who thrive on controlling or provoking reactions. This kind of presence is not built overnight. It emerges from years of trial, error, and conscious self-mastery. Each rejection teaches him resilience, each failure teaches him patience, and each success teaches him humility. Slowly he reaches a point where external noise cannot shake his inner foundation. By detaching, he protects his peace, and in doing so, he gains an aura of mystery that others cannot decode. He is no longer moved by the world, yet the world cannot help but be moved by him. Number 2, respect replaces attention. When a man reaches the stage where people stop viewing him as someone trying to fit in, something remarkable happens. He becomes someone others naturally respect. This shift is subtle but powerful. It doesn't come from forcing authority, demanding recognition, or chasing validation. Instead, it stems from authenticity, quiet confidence, and consistency in how he lives his life. Respect, in its truest form, cannot be begged for. It must be earned through action, character, and presence. When others sense that he is no longer competing for their approval, they begin to see him as independent, grounded, and secure within himself. That alone commands admiration. Psychologists often note that respect is deeply tied to what they call status signals. Not material possessions or loud displays of power, but traits like emotional control, reliability, and decisiveness. People are drawn to those who exude inner stability because in a world filled with uncertainty, such qualities act like an anchor. History also reflects this truth. Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius emphasize that a person's strength lies not in forcing others to follow, but in mastering one's own emotions and actions. The same principle applies today. The more a man governs himself, the less others can dismiss him, and the more they instinctively value his presence. Think about everyday life. A man who constantly tries to prove himself at work or in social circles often ends up overlooked or even disrespected. But the one who stays calm, delivers results without boasting, and doesn't chase attention, he stands out. People begin to trust his word, respect his boundaries, and even seek his advice. This happens because respect is not about being the loudest in the room, but about being the one who doesn't need the room to define him. Ultimately, when respect flows naturally, it transforms relationships. He no longer has to fight for a seat at the table because people invite him to it. Not out of pity or politeness, but out of genuine recognition of his worth. That is the quiet power of becoming someone who doesn't need to fit in because he already belongs to himself. And number 3, his energy cannot be drained. Drama, conflict, and manipulation lose their power the moment a man refuses to feed them with his emotions. This is one of the quiet strengths of the Sigma male. He does not win by shouting louder, nor by proving himself in endless battles of ego. Instead, his strength comes from restraint. By choosing not to react impulsively, he denies manipulators the energy they crave. Psychologists describe this as emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's emotional responses instead of being ruled by them. Studies have shown that people with strong emotional regulation are less likely to be manipulated in social and professional settings because manipulators thrive on predictability and reactivity. When those elements are absent, the trap loses its effectiveness. To understand this better, think about how drama operates. It is a cycle that feeds on attention. Someone provokes, another reacts, and the cycle intensifies. But when a person no longer reacts, when they meet provocation with calm indifference, the entire structure collapses. This is why some of the most powerful figures in history, from Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius to leaders like Nelson Mandela, practiced detachment. They knew that true power lies not in controlling others, but in controlling oneself. For the Sigma male, this mastery of detachment is not born overnight. It is the result of experience, failed relationships, betrayals, and countless lessons learned in silence. He has faced manipulation before, but instead of breaking, he studied it. He came to realize that conflict only continues when he gives it space in his mind. By withdrawing that energy, he does not just walk away from drama, he becomes immune to it. This is what makes him unexploitable. People may try to guilt him, shame him, or pull him into games of control, but he no longer takes the bait. This is not coldness, it is clarity. Emotional intelligence experts often emphasize the value of detached involvement, being present and aware without being entangled. It is a skill many strive for, but few achieve. The Sigma embodies it almost effortlessly. He can listen without absorbing, observe without judging, and walk away without resentment. This rare balance grants him freedom. While others remain trapped in webs of manipulation, the Sigma quietly builds his life on his own terms. In the end, his power lies not in confrontation, but in absence, the absence of emotional fuel that drama needs to survive. Without it, conflict burns itself out, and what remains is peace, clarity, and the kind of strength that cannot be touched. Number 4, women approach him differently. For women, his indifference becomes magnetic because it speaks a language deeper than charm or surface-level attraction. In psychology, this is often linked to the concept of emotional self-regulation, the ability to stay calm, composed, and unaffected by external noise. Studies in behavioral science suggest that people, especially women in social dynamics, are drawn to individuals who display consistency under pressure. It signals strength, stability, and leadership, qualities that historically and biologically have been associated with security and survival. This is not about arrogance or playing games. It is about a man's refusal to let his sense of worth depend on anyone else's approval. Women often find this indifference intriguing because it defies the usual patterns of interaction. Many men chase, flatter, or seek validation, but the Sigma male does not. His silence is not coldness, it is control. This makes him stand out because he seems to be living from a center of purpose rather than a hunger for attention. Sociologists note that humans are wired to value what seems scarce, and indifference in a world saturated with noise and overexposure feels like scarcity itself. In relationships, women sometimes interpret this self-control as mystery, and mystery has always been alluring. There's also a biological angle. Research in evolutionary psychology suggests that confidence without neediness is a trait linked to dominance and competence. When a man demonstrates that he is unaffected by drama, he communicates unconsciously that he can handle life's challenges without crumbling. For women, this can stir both curiosity and respect because it points to a deeper foundation of stability. In everyday life, this might look like a man who doesn't rush to prove himself, doesn't argue endlessly, and doesn't rise to every provocation. Instead, he observes, thinks, and acts with precision. That quiet discipline is more compelling than any exaggerated display of power, yet his indifference is not about ignoring others. It is about valuing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and principles over popularity. This detachment allows him to move with freedom while others remain bound by the need to be liked. For women, that level of self-possession is both challenging and fascinating. It invites them to wonder what lies beneath, to lean in closer, and to try to uncover what cannot be easily seen. In the end, his indifference is not a wall that pushes people away, but a force that pulls them in because it reflects mastery over himself, and that, more than anything, is irresistible. Number 5, authority without words. In groups, the Sigma male's silence is not emptiness, it is authority. He doesn't raise his voice, nor does he compete for dominance, yet people instinctively defer to his presence. This phenomenon is more than just personality. It's rooted in psychology and history. Studies in social dynamics show that human beings are highly sensitive to nonverbal cues. A calm, composed individual who listens more than he speaks often commands greater respect than someone who constantly asserts themselves. This is because silence creates space. Space for others to project meaning, to wonder, and to sense depth. Throughout history, leaders known for their restraint have carried this same aura. Take George Washington, for instance, who was famously soft-spoken, yet his mere presence commanded the attention of soldiers and politicians alike. In many cultures, wisdom has been linked not to the loudest voice in the room, but to the one who speaks the least. Proverbs 17:28 even notes, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." The Sigma embodies this principle effortlessly. He doesn't seek validation, so his words, when spoken, carry gravity. Educational psychology also sheds light on why people defer to silent figures. Research into leadership perception shows that those who remain composed under pressure are rated as more competent and trustworthy. Silence, in this sense, is not passive. It's active self-control. It signals to others, "I am not shaken, I am not in need of proving myself." That subtle confidence often outweighs aggressive dominance. In fact, modern workplace studies reveal that meetings often shift when a quiet figure finally speaks. The silence before makes the words after more impactful. Entertainment-wise, you can think of this in the way films portray mysterious heroes. Characters like Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. He speaks little, but when he does, everyone listens. The drama doesn't come from shouting, it comes from the power of restraint. This mirrors real life. People are drawn to mystery, and silence creates that aura of intrigue. So, when the Sigma male sits in a group, he doesn't have to prove his worth. His silence is not weakness, but discipline. He's not competing for attention, yet ironically, attention is drawn to him. His presence communicates that he is self-sufficient, unaffected by the noise around him, and firmly rooted in his own sense of identity. That is why others defer, not to his words, but to the quiet strength he embodies. Number 6, freedom from social games. He is free from peer pressure, fake friendships, and social hierarchies. He chooses authenticity over popularity. This freedom is not accidental. It is the result of a conscious decision to live life on his own terms rather than bending to the invisible chains society often places on people. Peer pressure has long been studied in psychology as one of the strongest influences on human behavior. In adolescence, for example, research shows that peer influence can override even parental guidance, shaping decisions on everything from clothing choices to risk-taking behavior. Yet the man who resists this force is one who understands that popularity is fleeting, while integrity is permanent. When someone breaks free from fake friendships, they also escape the trap of conditional acceptance. Many relationships are built on convenience, shared status, or mutual benefit rather than true care. Sociologists call these instrumental ties, where people maintain connections for personal gain. The man who chooses authenticity understands that such ties collapse when circumstances change. Instead, he invests in bonds that are rooted in honesty, loyalty, and shared values, even if that means standing alone for long seasons of life. Social hierarchies present another form of invisible control. From the workplace to social circles, hierarchies dictate who is seen as important and who is overlooked. Yet history is filled with examples of individuals who refuse to play by these rules. Think of philosophers like Diogenes, who rejected societal expectations, or leaders like Nelson Mandela, who resisted unjust systems despite immense pressure. Their strength came not from climbing the ladder, but from stepping away from it altogether. Choosing authenticity over popularity means valuing truth over applause. It is a rejection of conformity in favor of individuality. Studies on authenticity in psychology confirm that people who live authentically, acting in alignment with their core values, report higher levels of life satisfaction, lower stress, and greater resilience. The reason is simple. When you no longer perform for approval, you are no longer drained by the fear of rejection. This way of living is not easy, but it is liberating. It requires courage to stand apart, to walk away from crowds, and to remain grounded in one's convictions, even when misunderstood. But in doing so, a man gains something far more valuable than fleeting popularity. He gains peace, freedom, and an unshakable sense of self. Number 7, his focus creates unstoppable progress. With his mind free of noise, his energy turns towards growth, mastery, and purpose. His life becomes a living example of quiet power. This transformation is not merely poetic, it is supported by both psychology and history. Modern neuroscience shows that when the brain is not consumed by stress or constant external validation, it can enter a state known as flow. In flow, a person experiences heightened focus, improved memory retention, and greater problem-solving ability. Athletes, musicians, and entrepreneurs often describe this state as the moment when time seems to disappear and their performance feels effortless. For the Sigma male, whose strength lies in independence, silence, and detachment, become the soil where his deepest abilities take root. History also gives us countless examples of men who tapped into this principle. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who ruled Rome not with loud boasts, but with quiet discipline and reflection. Or consider Nikola Tesla, who often worked in solitude, turning his focused energy into inventions that shaped the modern world. These figures demonstrate that the absence of noise is not emptiness, it is potential waiting to be shaped into mastery. From a psychological perspective, studies in minimalism and mindfulness show that removing distractions increases well-being and productivity. When external approval no longer dictates his actions, the Sigma male redirects his energy inward, seeking mastery of his craft, clarity of thought, and strength of character. Instead of scattering his energy in all directions, he channels it toward growth. His relationships deepen not because he seeks them desperately, but because his presence radiates stability. His work becomes meaningful not because of recognition, but because it reflects his purpose. This shift is entertaining to observe because it flips social expectations on their head. In a world that equates volume with influence, the Sigma demonstrates that silence can be more powerful than noise. He becomes the man who walks into a room without demanding attention, yet all eyes turn toward him. His calmness unsettles those addicted to chaos, and his mastery inspires those who quietly seek greatness themselves. This is the paradox of quiet power. It needs no announcement, yet it leaves an unforgettable mark. When a Sigma male becomes untouchable, it is not about walls or arrogance. It is about clarity. It is about arriving at a place in life where distractions no longer hold power and where outside noise no longer disturbs inner peace. This is not a battle he wins over others. It is a quiet victory within himself. The untouchable Sigma is not feared because he dominates, nor admired because he performs. He is steady because he has chosen to live by principles rather than appearances. He has mastered the art of walking away, the discipline of silence, and the strength of focusing only on what truly matters. For those who cross his path, this energy is undeniable. They may not understand him, but they feel the difference. Some may envy it, others may respect it, and a few may even seek to learn from it. But regardless of how the world reacts, he remains unchanged, because his strength no longer depends on their reactions at all, and that is the essence of becoming untouchable. Not invincible, not perfect, but free. Free to live on your own terms, free to grow without permission, and free to stand firm even when the ground beneath others is shaking. So if you are walking this path, remember, the goal is not to impress the world, but to master yourself. When you do, you too will discover what it means to live untouchable.